And so with that, proceedings are set to begin.
Right, so President Mahama has taken the central lobby. In a few minutes, we shall hear him deliver the State of the Nation address. He seems a happy man. We'll take a listen to his SONA 2014. And afterwards, we'll continue with the discussion in the studio. Speaker of Parliament, Edward Doa-Jaho, is speaking. Let's take a listen to him.
Of the Ghana Armed Forces in the House. His Excellency the President is here in accordance with Article 67 of the Constitution of the Republic to deliver a message on the state of the nation to this Honorable House. On behalf of the leadership and indeed all honorable members of this august House, it is my privilege and singular honor to welcome His Excellency the President of the Republic to the House. Honorable members, I have the pleasure in inviting His Excellency the President to deliver his message. Your Excellency, you may now deliver your address.
Right Honorable Speaker, Your Excellency the Vice President, Your Ladyship the Chief Justice, Honorable Members of Parliament. Since the start of the Fourth Republic, every president, in fulfillment of Article 67 of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, has stood before this august House once each year to address the state of our nation. It is my privilege as President to also stand before you today to present a message on the state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to be addressing the full House today, and I wish to thank all my parliamentary colleagues for the cooperation you have continually extended to me since I was sworn in as President. As a former Member of Parliament for 12 years, I'm always filled with a sense of nostalgia anytime I step onto the grounds of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, we find ourselves at a unique place in history. Our beloved country, Ghana, is a nation in transition. We are on the cusp of many exciting new opportunities. We are on the verge of fulfilling the promises of our forefathers and foremothers about the destiny of our country and the determination of our people. Mr. Speaker, we are in the midst of change, and change can often feel uncomfortable, especially as it pulls us away from the systems and practices with which we have become familiar, but which are no longer serving our needs efficiently. Mr. Speaker, without change, Ghana cannot grow. Change is what will propel us forward as a nation to all that lies ahead of us. And these new opportunities will enable us to transform ourselves from a lower middle income, import-dependent developing country to a proud and robust, self-sufficient middle income nation. Mr. Speaker, we have been here before as a nation. We have been in transition before, pushing our way past doubt and past darkness to find the dawn of a new day. Ghana was created through change, a movement of the people in support of their collective vision. And then Ghana went on to influence change on the African continent and, in effect, the course of the world. Mr. Speaker, last year in my first State of the Nation address, I defined the 4 pillars around which my approach to governance and socio-economic transformation would be based. These are putting people first, building a strong and resilient economy, expanding infrastructure for growth, and maintaining transparent and accountable governance. Today, as I talk about where we are as a nation, I also want to talk about who we are as a nation. I want to talk about the richness and diversity of our talent and innovation. I want to talk about the strength of our determination as a people. It is a determination that has always guided us toward victory in all our endeavors. We're a nation of 24 million people. That is people, not products. 24 million human lives, each one deserving access to the basic necessities of life, each one possessing unique ideas and skill sets to make Ghana better, each one holding more value to this country in its existence and potential than any other natural resource we have. Mr. Speaker, this is why my government's first priority is and will continue to be our people. At the core of every decision we make and every policy we implement is the understanding that it will have a direct and positive impact on the day-to-day lives of the average Ghanaian citizen. Mr. Speaker, at the recent World Economic Forum at Davos, a prominent item on the agenda was the topic of inequality. Various development and social justice organizations cited it as one of this decade's top global risks. Inequality among nations as well as inequality within nations has become a major flashpoint for social tensions. Mr. Speaker, wealth disparity is of great concern to us. It is a threat to our stability as a nation and to our unity as a people. We're aiming to bridge the gap between the richest and poorest of our people. In the next 2 months here in Accra, we will host a major international conference focusing on the theme of growing inequality in the world. We are proud to be hosting this conference and are eager to share our experiences with the rest of the world and also gain insight from other conference participants and the international community at large. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection is a major instrument in our effort to create an all-inclusive society in which the weak and disadvantaged also have a stake in our nation's progress. The Ministry's primary mandate is to promote the welfare and protection of children and to empower the vulnerable, the excluded, the aged, and persons living with disability, and to ensure true gender equality. A lot of this ministry's work involves advocacy, and in this regard, the ministry has been actively involved in the drafting of the Affirmative Action Bill and the Interstate Succession and Property Rights of Spouses Bill. The ministry also initiated the process for the validation of the Domestic Workers Regulations. These are pieces of legislation that are key to protecting the rights of our women and other vulnerable groups in society. Mr. Speaker, the ministry's flagship program, however, is the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty, otherwise known as LEAP. Through this program, the ministry has made cash grants to 74,000 of the poorest households in our country. This means that now the poorest 74,000 families in Ghana will be able to afford food, clothing, and the cost of basic transportation. Now these families will have access to health care and education. Now these families can even invest in some small income-generating activity. This year, the ministry, with the support of government, plans to increase the beneficiary families of LEAP to 100,000. In 2015, that number will increase to 150,000. Order. I'm not your co-equal.
Mr. Speaker! Now it's a language here.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Who said chair? Mr. Speaker, currently the ministry is implementing an electronic platform to deliver the grants to the beneficiaries using mobile phones. Mobile devices are being distributed to the beneficiary families to enable them receive their transfers. With those mobile devices, many households will also for the first time be able to connect to the National Communications Network. The LEAP program is not intended to be a source of long-term support to the same set of families. The purpose of these cash grants is to empower the poor and vulnerable. It is to create opportunities in order to give them a way out of poverty. The program ensures that the most impoverished among us can live in dignity. It offers them hope in their future possibilities and a chance to participate in the collective future of our nation. Mr. Speaker, this ministry is especially vigilant when it comes to the rights and protection of our children. The ministry, together with the Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit, has led an awareness campaign against child marriage. As a result of this campaign, they have successfully extricated numerous children forced into marriage and returned them to their families and their studies. The ministry has also provided the equipment and taken toolkits to 25 institutions across the nation to facilitate the technical and vocational training of young people. Finally, Mr. Speaker, in other work, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection convened a team of doctors to perform the necessary surgeries on women with obstetric fistula in the Upper East, Upper West, Volta and Central regions. In addition to offering these women relief from pain and discomfort of this childbirth injury, these procedures have restored their dignity and self-worth as women. Mr. Speaker, through our social intervention programs, we must create social safety nets that protect the poor and vulnerable. We must share the fruits of our growth equitably in order that we leave no one behind. This is the only way we can guarantee that all our citizens are committed and have a stake in the survival and advancement of our nation. Mr. Speaker, it is this government's vision to extend quality health care to all our people, irrespective of one's status in society or geographical location. This involves the construction of new facilities and the training of health personnel. Healthy people make a healthy nation. All around the world, it has been recognized that the cost and consequences of illness far outweigh the cost of making quality health care accessible and affordable to all. Mr. Speaker, to this end, government is pursuing the vision of bringing health care to the doorsteps of our people in even the remotest of locations. We have engaged in an aggressive rollout of community health improvement compounds, CHIPs. The compounds are staffed with trained nurses, midwives, and other auxiliary health personnel. They are located in rural and peri-urban communities, and they provide basic health care services, including antenatal care to pregnant women. These compounds have greatly increased access to health care. At least in Bole Bangwe, I can point some of the CHIPS compounds out to you. My former constituency, apologies to my MP. These compounds have greatly increased access to health care, especially in deprived communities. They have cut down the distance our citizens have had to travel to access health care. The CHIPS compounds are also playing a prominent role in Ghana's steadily decreasing maternal mortality numbers. By 2016, we aim to construct an additional 1,600 new CHIPS compounds across the country. To support this wonderful idea, my colleagues and I in the executive branch of government have taken a voluntary 10% pay cut. These contributions will be used to construct some more CHIPS compounds so that we can save the lives of more women during childbirth. Mr. Speaker, our policy is to provide every district with a modern health facility. The newly constructed Acquah Hospital has been equipped and is now open for use. This has improved the quality of health care in that catchment area. Work is ongoing on 12 new district hospitals, including Dodowa, Sekandi, Fomina, and Garu Timpani. While financing for an extra 9 is being concluded. Mr. Speaker, work is ongoing on a new teaching hospital for the University of Ghana. When this project is completed, this new hospital, 600-bed hospital, will make quality tertiary health care readily available. It will also ease the pressure on the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Work is also ongoing to upgrade the Rich Hospital into a fully fledged regional hospital to serve the Greater Accra region. Work on the Upper West Regional Hospital in Wa is progressing steadily, and I'm sure Pelpo is very happy about that. Mr. Speaker, just a few weeks ago, I cut the sword for the start of phase 2 of the upgrading and expansion works in Tamale Hospital. This upgrading has made Tamale Teaching Hospital a critical provider of tertiary care in the northern sector. This development also means that it is now possible for medical students from the University of Development Studies to perform their clinicals at the Tamale Teaching Hospital instead of moving to the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology to complete their studies as it used to be in the past. Mr. Speaker, in this age of modern medicine, in order to best serve patients, our healthcare facilities must maintain equipment that is state-of-the-art and in good working order. Under the National Medical Equipment Replacement Program, modern equipment has been supplied to 40 district hospitals. Other beneficiary hospitals are the Ridge, Tema General, 37 Military, Children's Hospital, as well as the Mamobi General Hospital. There were 3 teaching hospitals that also benefited: Tamale, Komfanoche, and Kolebu. Mr. Speaker, Kolebu, Ghana's premier teaching hospital, benefited from equipment supplies and rehabilitation worth 276 million cedis. This expenditure covered the pediatrics theater, which had been closed for more than 8 years. Mr. Speaker, children are now able today to have their surgeries in a beautiful renovated theater with first-class equipment. Additional facilities, Mr. Speaker, additional facilities covered by the expenditure were the neonatal intensive care and baby units, the mammograph center, as well as the laundry and the kitchen. We are currently engaged in the expansion of health training facilities. More nursing and midwifery training and medical assistance training institutions are being opened all across the country. This means that more skilled personnel are being graduated to serve in the health sector. So far, more than 3,000 medical personnel have been trained. These include medical assistants, midwives, public and community health nurses. The net result of this additional access and availability of health personnel is reflected in the increasing life expectancy ratio in Ghana, which currently stands at about 65 years and is among the highest in sub-Saharan Africa. Another positive result of this is the drop in institutional neonatal mortality from 5.8 per 1,000 live births in 2012 to 2.3 per 1,000 live births today. The average neonatal maternal mortality is also decreasing steadily. These are not just numbers, they represent human lives. These improvements mean that more babies are surviving childbirth and more mothers' lives are being saved. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to saving lives, Ghana has been hugely successful in its efforts in the area of HIV/AIDS control. Our prevalence rate for HIV/AIDS continues to decline and currently stands at 1.37%. The Ghana AIDS Commission continues to work towards the implementation of our 5-year strategic plan. The plan envisions a 50% reduction in new infections by 2015, virtual elimination of mother-to-child transmission, and the placement of more infected persons on antiretroviral therapies. We will mobilize funding for a massive scaling up of our antiretroviral therapy program. At the invitation of UNAIDS, I attended the Lancet Commission Conference on HIV/AIDS in London. At the conference, I championed the cause of building local capacity in the African pharmaceutical industry for the production of antiretroviral therapies. Mr. Speaker, for this purpose, we have released 50 million Ghana cedis to the local pharmaceutical manufacturing industry to increase their capacity for manufacture of antiretroviral drugs. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to announce that we are on track to exceed the target of a 50% reduction in new infections by 2015. We're also leading the way in sub-Saharan Africa with over 76% reduction in new HIV infections among children. Despite these successes, Mr. Speaker, there are key populations in which HIV infection remains much higher than the national average. Among sex workers, the infection rate is 11.3%. It has dropped significantly from 25% in 2009, but it still remains well above our target, as does the infection rate among men who have sex with men, which currently stands at 17.5%. Mr. Speaker, education, the source is the Ghana Age Commission. Ghana Age Commission. Mr. Speaker, education has proven to be the most effective tool in the battle against the spread of HIV/AIDS. The awareness that is gained through education is what prompts people to alter or stop engaging in behavior and practices that place them at greater risk of infection. We will continue our public awareness campaigns, specifically the ones targeting those populations at greatest risk. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to education, government's top areas of focus are quality, access, and affordability. There was a time when our public school system was on track and on par with the private schools here in Ghana and anywhere else in the world. Where education is concerned, we have a history of being quite visionary. When the Prince of Wales College, which later became Achimota, was established in 1924 as a co-educational facility, gender equality in education was far from the norm. In fact, most women the world over did not even have the right to vote or to own property. But in Ghana, at the time, girls and young women were being educated alongside their male counterparts. And rightly, with that education came the expectation of comparable careers. When the Commission on Higher Education in the British colonies recommended that a single university be established in British West Africa and chose Ibadan, Nigeria as the location of that university, we Ghanaians protested this decision. We understood the value of education. We knew what the presence of an institution of higher learning would mean to our people, especially to the future generations. In the end, our protest was successful, and that university, which was born in 1948 as an affiliate of the University of London, is now none other than our esteemed University of Ghana, my prominent alma mater. Mr. Speaker, we must make education a priority again. The students of this nation deserve to have the confidence that comes from knowing that the education they are receiving will adequately prepare them to navigate this competitive global workplace. If our students are left behind, then we as a nation will also be left behind. To this end, government has been working to improve the quality of education, especially at the basic level. The main problems affecting this level are a lack of teachers, a lack of teaching and learning materials, poor school infrastructure, and apathy in management of the community apathy in management of the schools. Government has been working to address these constraints. We are actively engaged in the process of building new school blocks to replace schools in substandard structures. In 1,900 communities, mostly rural, this has improved the environment in which children learn and enabled classes to be held all the year round. In urban schools, these additional facilities have enabled government to progressively eliminate the shift system that had children attending school in turns. Science resource centers have also been rehabilitated across the country to facilitate the learning of science and mathematics. Mr. Speaker, the availability of teachers has been a major challenge. Because of constraints of paying teacher trainee allowances, government previously imposed quotas on admission into colleges of education. Annual admission to these colleges was therefore restricted. With the recent decision to transfer teacher trainees onto the Ghana Student Loan Trust, it has made it possible to increase the number of trainees in the colleges of education from the previous 9,000 to 15,000 this academic year. This would improve the supply of teachers and open up the opportunity to many young people who want to take up teaching as a profession. Unfortunately, it has become apparent that the training of professional teachers does not always translate into an availability of teachers in all areas. Mr. Speaker, I'm concerned, and we all must be concerned, about the findings from a national staff rationalization exercise just completed by the Ministry of Education. It is clear that we need to do better with the redeployment of our teachers. The current situation is that in many regions there's an excess of teachers in urban and peri-urban areas. But in the rural and other deprived communities, teachers are often in short supply. We cannot accept this educational divide between our urban and rural communities. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm calling for nationwide support for the Education Ministry and the Ghana Education Service as they take the necessary actions to implement a program aimed at a comprehensive redeployment and redistribution of teachers. It is very important that all metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives, as well as members of parliament and community leaders, take an active part in these efforts to address issues of education at the district and community level. Together we can and we must improve school management, performance, and accountability across our nation. Mr. Speaker, the lack of instructional and learning materials is also being addressed through the supply of textbooks and exercise books to our children in public schools across the country. Through this program, more than 12.5 million books have been distributed to basic school children in the country, thus equipping them with the core textbooks they require for their education. While Ghana has been successful in achieving the Millennium Development Goals on universal primary education, there still remain pockets where school enrollment is low. To address this, government introduced the Complementary Basic Education Program. This program has facilitated teaching and learning for 25,000 out-of-school children. Classes under this program are ongoing in the Upper East, Upper West, Northern, and Brong-Ahafo regions. Now there are 25,000 children whose choices will not be limited by illiteracy. 25,000 children who can go on to become positive contributors to this society in ways they might never have imagined before. Mr. Speaker, at the secondary level, access continues to be a major problem. Existing secondary schools have a capacity to absorb only 60% of the students who qualify from junior high school. Because of the high demand for secondary education, existing schools have been compelled to admit much higher than they were designed to accommodate. This has created a situation in which there are some schools that have as many as 3,000 students. This is significantly higher than the prescribed average of 1,500. Government's program to construct 200 new community-based schools is on track. The community-based secondary school program is on track. Architectural drawings, designs, and quantities. Mr. Speaker, architectural drawings, designs, and quantities have been completed. Sites for the schools have been selected, and the procurement process for the first batch of schools is currently ongoing. The start of construction works for these schools was held back in 2013 because of the detailed work that went into the preparatory process. Mr. Speaker, I am happy to inform you that we have made good progress on this project, and I invite all of you honorable members of this august House to join me to break ground for the commencement Mr. Speaker, I enjoin all you members of this House to join me for the commencement of the construction of the first batch of these schools next month. Precisely, Mr. Speaker, precisely on 3rd March. You are all invited. Mr. Speaker, the most expensive segment of our education system is the second cycle. We promise to rationalize fees in secondary schools in order to reduce the burden on parents. The Ministry of Education, after extensive stakeholder consultations, advertised a uniform list of approved fees for second cycle schools. Parents are advised to report any head of school that charges fees outside of those on the schedule published by the Ministry. Further to this, the Ministry of Education has prepared a report on the roadmap for a progressive introduction of free secondary education in Ghana Mr. Speaker, I'll take that again. Further to this, the ministry, following consultations with stakeholders, has prepared a report on a roadmap for a progressive introduction, and mark my words, I said progressive introduction of free secondary education in Ghana as required under the 1992 Constitution. This roadmap will be presented to Cabinet for approval and subsequent implementation. Under the guidance of this roadmap, we can anticipate that fees for day students will be abolished at an estimated cost of 71 million Ghana cedis in 2015-2016 academic year. Mr. Speaker, access to tertiary education continues to expand with the increase of admission into public universities and the participation of accredited private institutions in providing such education. While this has provided opportunity for many to gain a university education, we must be mindful both of the quality of education provided and also the disciplines offered in our institutions of higher learning. Some universities may appear interested only in expanding enrollment to attract greater revenue and therefore waive the strict entry qualifications required for study in university. Additionally, many universities and tertiary institutions go for the softer course options and churn out graduates in business and humanities at the expense of science, technology, and allied courses, which are increasingly in demand in an economy in transition from lower middle income to middle income status. This is partly responsible for the increasing graduate unemployment level with which we are currently plagued. I have asked the Minister of Education and Employment, the Ministers of Education and Employment and Labour Relations to sponsor a joint survey of the professional and skill set in demand in the Ghanaian labour market. Such a survey will provide students with guidance in selecting courses in areas where their opportunities for employment are brighter, and also provide our universities with information to adjust the curricula and admissions to align with the demands of the Ghanaian job market. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report to this August House today that, as stated in our 2012 NDC manifesto and indicated in my 2013 State of the Nation address, the establishment of the first public universities in the Eastern region is becoming a reality. The Professor Benning Amwaku-Nneoma Committee has completed work on the nature, specialization, proposed academic mandates, and the specific location for this university. A draft bill for the establishment of this new university in the Eastern region is also ready and will soon be presented to this House for consideration. Mr. Speaker, it also pleases me to report that progress is being made with the two public universities that were set up in the last term of the NDC. The University of Health and Allied Sciences in the Volta region has increased its intake from 155 students at its inception 3 years ago to 535. Additionally, the University of Energy and Natural Resources in the Brong-Ahafo region has also grown from 150 founding students to 716 current students. Plans are also afoot for the establishment of their satellite campuses in Hohoi and Doma, Ahinkro, and Nswatre. Honorable members will also observe in the Ghana Education Trust Fund formula to be presented to this House soon that we have proposed to scale up financial support to these new universities. Mr. Speaker, before the end of this year, I will announce the formal process to convert 10 of our polytechnics into technical universities. The technical committee set up by the Ministry of Education has completed its work, and various stakeholder consultations are currently taking place, leading to the final conversion. I must commend the technical committee for their impressive outputs, and Mr. Speaker, I welcome the excitement this policy intervention has generated in the technical and vocational education fraternity. Ghanaians can remain assured that government will continue in our efforts to rebrand technical and vocational education and give it the important attention and support that it deserves in the development of our nation. This move is particularly important at this critical moment of our development when we are embarking on the transformation of the structure of our economic fundamentals. Mr. Speaker, despite resistance by some persons who are even guaranteed to benefit just like all Ghanaians, we have taken a major and innovative decision to operationalize a national research fund. The importance of a research fund cannot be lost on any one of us. Nations and companies have become great through research and innovation. How can we adapt and develop effective local solutions without investing in research and innovation? Mr. Speaker, our lecturers, researchers, and students deserve this special support so they can increase their capacity to carry out important scientific inquiries. It is fitting that this objective is being led by one of our esteemed academics, Professor Daniel Mrekujima, former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Mines and Technology in Acquah. Government expects the Mrekujima Committee to make recommendations on the modalities for accessing the fund, its independence, and its sustainability. Higher institutions of learning and all Ghanaians, especially the private sector, must support the establishment of this fund, which has enormous potential to transform the fortunes of our nation. I wish to call for the support of the legislature in the implementation of these decisions and policies, because, Mr. Speaker, our nation will have greater prosperity with benefits for all as a result. As a country, we can only be happy with the many academic opportunities being created for the youth of our country. Mr. Speaker, as government responds to the issues that confront the youth in our population, we are also mindful of the need to ensure that our young people are part of the process of finding the needed solutions. Following on the national policy document launched in 2010, we have finalized work on an action and implementation plan for the national youth policy. The implementation plan represents what is a major paradigm shift in our approach to youth development in this country. While the plan represents our commitment to addressing the challenges our young people face, it is first and foremost the work of the youth themselves. Mr. Speaker, after several rounds of discussion with our young people and the entrepreneurs amongst them, we have also finalized work on what was proposed as a Youth Jobs and Enterprise Development Fund, now to be known as the Youth Enterprise Support Initiative. Currently being scheduled is the launch. Our 10 million Ghana cedis has been devoted to this program. This initiative will provide opportunities for innovation and the creation of decent jobs for the youth of Ghana through mentorship and support. While the Youth Enterprise Support Program is not a full answer to our job creation issues, it does reflect my commitment to the future of the Ghanaian youth. I encourage our young people to begin the process of organizing and formalizing their business startup ideas to access the facilities available under the YES. Mr. Speaker, construction of the superstructure of the Cape Coast Stadium commenced in June 2013. The preparatory work, which involves ground leveling, extension of utilities to the site, construction of drainage facilities, and layout of the road have been completed. It is expected that work will progress steadily and be completed on schedule. Mr. Speaker, for the third consecutive time, our senior national football team, the Ghana Black Stars, have qualified for the prestigious 2014 FIFA World Cup to be held in Brazil in June this year. Our national female soccer team, the Ghana Black Queens, also qualified to participate in the next FIFA World Tournament, scheduled to take place in Costa Rica next month. Still on sports, our local Black Stars won last year's Wafu Zone B tournament, which was hosted here in Ghana. This tournament prepared us for the 2014 Chan tournament, which was recently concluded in South Africa. We won the silver medal in that tournament. Mr. Speaker, our sports teams consistently make Ghana stand out as being the best Africa has to offer. As part of our commitment to ensure the further development of sports, the National Sports College in Winneba has been pursuing successful private collaborations for infrastructural development through the public-private partnership arrangement. Government last year reviewed drawings of the sports arenas and sports senior high schools to be established in the regions, and we expect construction work to begin soon, when all procurement formalities are ended. Mr. Speaker, despite the short-term challenges we face, our economic fundamentals remain sound. Mr. Speaker, Joshua Water. Mr. Speaker, despite the short-term challenges we face, our economic fundamentals remain sound, and our mid-term prospects are bright. Growth continues to be robust at an estimated 7.4% last year, and we still retain our vision to accelerate and maintain GDP growth at above 8% going forward. The non-oil sector of our economy grew by 5.81% over the same period. The agricultural sector in particular, which faced a few challenges the previous year, due principally to some difficulties in the cocoa sector, still posted a significant growth of 3.41%. Mr. Speaker, the fact that we are transiting into a services economy is obvious from the strong growth that continues to be posted by the services sector. This sector in 2010 overtook agriculture as the largest contributor to GDP, and last year it posted an impressive growth of 9.1%. The industry sector, which had witnessed sluggish growth over the last couple of years, also posted a remarkable increase of 9.2%. Mr. Speaker, since 2007, the world has been faced with a financial crisis, and Ghana has not remained immune to the pressures created by this crisis. The recent tapering policy announced by the U.S. Federal Reserve greatly impacted numerous emerging markets, and Ghana was one of those affected. Compounding this is the fact that several domestic factors further aggravated the challenges with our macro economy. A larger than expected expansion in the wages and compensation bill during the implementation of the single spine created a wage spiral that we are working with organized labor to contain. Huge and unsustainable subsidies on petroleum products and utilities also threw the budget out of gear. The net effect was an increase in our budget deficit to nearly 12%, an increase in inflation above 13%, an increase in interest rates, and also an increase in our domestic debt. Mr. Speaker, Ghana is in the capital market to stay, and we take note of the concerns that analysts have expressed about these developments, notably on the compensation bill, including acknowledgement of the painful measures that our people are having to endure towards our consolidation effort. Mr. Speaker, the visiting IMF Article 4 mission, who I believe might be in this chamber with us, have also expressed similar concerns in the course of our interactions with them. Mr. Speaker, it is for these reasons that we have had to take difficult measures to arrest this trend and restore the macroeconomy to good health. While these measures have been unpleasant and difficult to take, ultimately they are necessary to create a good environment in which businesses can continue not merely to survive, but also to grow. Mr. Speaker, we have had to take these difficult measures, as I said, to arrest this trend and restore the macroeconomy to good health. These measures have been unpleasant and difficult to take, but ultimately they are necessary to create a good economic environment in which businesses can grow. It is an experience with which I'm sure we can empathize in our daily lives. We have all, at some point, had to bear the taste of bitter medicine in order to restore our bodies back to good health. Mr. Speaker, I wish to assure this august House and the good citizens of Ghana that as with the taste of any bitter medicine, this turbulence we are going through is temporary. Mr. Speaker, and I assure you that we shall begin to see the benefits of the sacrifices we are making very soon. Mr. Speaker, as a lower middle-income country in transition to middle-income status, we have an enormous need for credit to develop our social and economic infrastructure. Our debt-to-GDP ratio is currently estimated at 52%. While this is not abnormally high, our domestic debt and the current high interest rates are a major challenge to the economy. The Honorable Minister for Finance is currently implementing measures to refinance a portion of this domestic debt and thereby reduce the pressures these obligations are placing on the budget. We have also commenced work on the Ghana Infrastructure Fund. This fund will enable us to disaggregate our debt profile and transfer infrastructural investments with a revenue-generating capacity from the public debt. Institutions such as Ghana Gas, VRA, GPHA, Ghana Airports Company Limited, GMPC, and other public and private institutions will be able to finance their investments through this window without burdening the public debt stock. This should significantly improve our debt sustainability profile. We will work with our development partners and other multilateral associates to ensure that Ghana continues on the path of accelerated growth and equitable development into the future. Mr. Speaker, recent measures announced by the Bank of Ghana in response to the depreciation of the cedi created some concerns among the business and investment community. Mr. Speaker, Ghana still remains the most attractive investment destination in West Africa. And guarantees peace, safety, stability, and security. I wish to assure investors that all agreements governing their investments remain in force, and repatriation of their profits and dividends are guaranteed. The Bank of Ghana has clarified its regulations in respect of foreign currency accounts, and it is my hope that this has allayed the concerns of both domestic and foreign investor communities. Mr. Speaker, Ghana has come a long way from the 70s and early 80s, when a command and control economy led to a strict regulation of foreign exchange. Reforms in the mid-80s saw the introduction of forex bureaus and the liberalization of the foreign exchange regime. But, Mr. Speaker, in this transition, we moved from one extreme to another, a situation in which control of foreign exchange was so lax that Ghana was fast becoming a source of foreign exchange for our neighbors. Huge transactions in millions of dollars were being conducted in forex bureau. This had not been the original intention. Dwindling confidence in our currency led to a situation where people hedged on the dollar. Persons with excess cedis converted them into dollars and deposited them in their foreign exchange accounts. We had a situation where forex holdings on behalf of business and individuals in our commercial banks amounted to over $3 billion. In addition, our economy had become increasingly dollarized. Hotel room rates, vehicle prices, rents, school fees, household appliances, consumer items, cosmetics, clothes, and other items were all quoted in dollars. Mr. Speaker, the obvious problem is that the dollar is not our national currency. The currency of Ghana is the cedi. And the cedi will only gain strength if we begin to view and use it as such, our nation's only currency. The Attorney General and IOCO have been charged to monitor the situation and severely sanction any institution advertising rates or prices and charging in foreign currency. Mr. Speaker, a directive to the same effect has also been issued to government agencies. Mr. Speaker, the basic structure of our economy has not changed from colonial times. The Gold Coast was designed by the colonial administration to be exporters of raw materials and importers of finished goods. This was what best served their needs and purposes. Mr. Speaker, after independence, our first president, Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of blessed memory, sought to break this vicious cycle by establishing numerous state-owned industries to produce consumer products for the domestic market as an import substitution measure. Unfortunately, the management of these state enterprises became a challenge, and soon they turned into a very huge expense on the budget. A decision was therefore made to divest these enterprises to the private sector. Unfortunately, in many cases, the domestic private sector was unable to leverage the financing needed to revamp these industries and bring them back into production. Mr. Speaker, the result is that we are still largely dependent on the export of raw materials like gold, cocoa, timber, oil, and mineral exports, and on the import of finished products. That is still the basic structure of our economy from colonial times. Mr. Speaker, that's why in my introduction I said there's the need for change. Mr. Speaker, a fundamental problem of our economy is that we do not make what we consume. This is the situation the late General Achampong sought to address with the Operation Feed Yourself and Operation Feed Your Industries programs, which were aimed at strengthening Ghana's ability to be self-reliant. Mr. Speaker, in 2013 alone, we spent a whopping amount of $1.5 billion in foreign currency on the import of rice, sugar, wheat, tomato products, frozen fish, poultry, and vegetable cooking oils. Rice accounted for $374 million. Fish for $283.3 million. Wheat for $226.7 million. Poultry, $169.2 million. Cooking oil, $127 million. And tomato, $112.1 million. Mr. Speaker, imagine if this money had been retained and spent in Ghana. Imagine if it had gone into the pockets of Ghanaian entrepreneurs who would in turn spend those cedis in our markets, our restaurants, our beauty salons, our pharmacies, our shopping centers, and other Ghanaian enterprises. Mr. Speaker, when Ghanaians produce goods that other Ghanaians use, they are then able to reinvest that revenue back into the very communities that patronize them. The money flows in a current and it fortifies the nation's economy. That, Mr. Speaker, is the best use of a nation's currency. Imagine all that we could have achieved if in 1 year we could spend as much in cedis on locally produced rice, sugar, wheat, tomato products, frozen fish, poultry, vegetable, and cooking oils as we spent in dollars on those very same imported items that we have a comparative advantage to produce. Mr. Speaker, as we all know, raw material exports are subject to price fluctuations on the international market. Countries that are dependent on raw material exports are therefore subject to wild cycles of booms and busts. Mr. Speaker, 57 years after independence, we need to take pause and ask ourselves some critical questions. Can the current structure of our economy carry us to the next level? What changes must we make to create an economic structure that will serve our needs and purposes? Mr. Speaker, order, order. Chia, Munyedin. Keep quiet and listen. This is a lesson in economics. Mr. Speaker, between 2012 and 2013, Ghana lost $1.3 billion in export revenues on account of the decline in cocoa and gold prices. Mr. Speaker, at the same time, our import bill continues to rise dramatically to about 17 billion last year. Mr. Speaker, the questions we must ask ourselves are, can we as a nation continue this unbridled importation of everything from plastic dolls to toothpicks? Must we continue to rely on a narrow band of raw material exports? Were we born to be a nation of only shopkeepers and traders? My definite response to these questions is a big no. Once more, Mr. Speaker, we return to the need for change in order to facilitate growth. We must change the structure of our economy. We must reduce the importation of items that we have a comparative advantage to produce.
All right.
We must add value to our exports through primary, secondary, and tertiary processing. We must add value to our cocoa by increasing domestic processing. We must refine our gold before export. We must pursue Nkrumah's dream of an integrated bauxite and alumina industry and halt the export of raw bauxite. We must revamp the Tema oil refinery. We must revive BOST, Valco, the Tema shipyard and dry dock, and the many other strategic industries that serve as extra pillars for our economy. Mr. Speaker, in compliance with the Constitution, I am required to present to this House a medium-term development framework before the close of this year. I have dialogued with the NDPC that is working on this plan and urge them to come out with a plan that fundamentally addresses this weakness in the structure of our economy. I have specifically asked them to handle the process of drawing up this plan in a way as to create a buy-in from all Ghanaians, irrespective of political affiliation or societal status. Mr. Speaker, this is not a time to stand divided along any lines. This is also not a time to stand on the sidelines. This is the time for us to stand together as Ghanaians on the side of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, in the interim, to kickstart this process of change, I have asked the Minister of Trade and Industry to request that the Export Development and Agriculture Investment Fund extends assistance to local investors for the increased production of poultry, rice, tomatoes, vegetable oil, and fish. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to inform you too that financing has been finalized for the construction of a new sugar processing plant in Komenda. Financing has been finalized for the construction of a new sugar processing plant in Komenda in the central region This would reduce our importation of sugar. We are also in discussion with another private investor about the establishment of another sugar processing plant in the northern region near Sablugu. I have requested that the Honorable Minister of Trade and Industry give these two projects his personal and undivided attention. Mr. Speaker, I've also tasked the Minister to speak with the operators of our flour mills and introduce incentives for them for the production of composite flour that incorporates more of our local flour from products like cassava, maize, and sorghum. We did this successfully in the brewery industry when we introduced a sliding scale of excise, and that has created an addition of more local products into the beer you drink. We can do this with flour too. Mr. Speaker, it is my intention to commence work this year on the planning for the realization of the integrated bauxite and aluminium industry, including the revamping of the Valco aluminium smelter. Mr. Speaker, a joint venture agreement between TOR and Petro Saudi is being finalized. It's a joint venture, it's not a sale. A joint venture. Listen carefully, I said joint venture. Order. Let me repeat for emphasis. I said a joint venture agreement between TOR and Petro Saudi is being finalized to revamp the operations of our oil refinery. This will reduce the huge amount of foreign exchange we expend on the importation of finished petroleum products. Mr. Speaker, a transactions advisor has been selected to guide the process of choosing a strategic partner to invest in the Tema shipyard and dry dock industry. Mr. Speaker, there's more good news. Keep quiet and listen. Keep quiet and listen. The change and transformation is starting. Mr. Speaker, I have tasked the Cocoa Board to enter into a strategic partnership to produce jute sacks in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, this will begin by the importation of the jute fiber and the sewing of the sacks locally, but it will be eventually backward integrated into the production of kenaf and the weaving of the jute fibers locally. Mr. Speaker, when this is achieved, Cocoa Board will be required to halt the importation of jute sacks for cocoa and buy all its sacks from this factory. Mr. Speaker, I have requested the board and management of the Electricity Company of Ghana to encourage the local manufacture of electrical products like cables, transformers, and meters by purchasing from local producers who meet their quality standards. Mr. Speaker, we will this year launch a broad campaign to encourage Ghanaians to buy made in Ghana goods. Any import item we buy as Ghanaians constitutes an export of jobs out of our country, especially in respect of the items for which we have a comparative advantage to produce. Mr. Speaker, last week I held several meetings with a host of leaders in the business community, from large corporations to medium and small-scale enterprises. Companies as wide-ranging as Carl Bank, Finatrade, Scancom, to SETI Industries, Beige Capital, Reroy Cables, and Agbeva Herbal Center. The purpose of these meetings was to open an honest and easy exchange of ideas and information between government and the private sector. The better we are able to assist one another, the faster we can all help to strengthen the economy by building a Ghana that is self-sufficient and successful. Mr. Speaker, I was encouraged and inspired by these meetings. The determined, hard-working, visionary men and women I met reaffirmed my belief that Ghanaians are more than capable of creating industries to sustain this country. Mr. Speaker, I met Mr. Magnus Nunu, who is the president of the National Association of Sachet and Packaged Water Producers. Mr. Nunu spoke to me with the eloquence and knowledge of an economist. And why not? He attended schools in Cape Coast, Ningo, and Laboni, and he read economics at the University of Ghana. Mr. Nunu introduced the packaging of water in sachets, and he now employs over 100,000 people. Mr. Nunu even found value in his industry's waste and became a proponent of commercial-scale plastic waste recycling. Mr. Speaker, at this same meeting, I also made the acquaintance of Mr. Tony Senaya of Horseman Shoes, a company he started in 2009 by buying and selling locally made shoes from a manufacturer in La Paz. It had always been his dream to build a vocational training institute. One day he saw a business opportunity. He realized that a lot of young people he knew were skilled at making shoes, but beyond that, they didn't know how to make their work economically viable. Suddenly, he saw a way to create employment for young people. He recruited them to make the shoes that he designed. And Mr. Speaker, I tell you, his shoes are very nice and very comfortable. In fact, I'm wearing a pair right now. Mr. Speaker, I'm wearing a pair of made in Ghana shoes right now. And I can tell you they rival any shoe produced anywhere in this world. And for those of you who are interested, when we finish, come to the Speaker's chamber. I'll remove the shoe and you will respect it. This, Mr. Speaker, is what I mean when I say made in Ghana. The people as well as the products. Who we are as Ghanaians has always been the driving force behind what we do and how we do it. This country is more than capable of consistently delivering quality in people, in performance, in products, if only we demand it of ourselves. Mr. Speaker, despite the fact that the agricultural sector has lost its prime spot as the largest contributor to GDP to the services sector, agriculture remains a key priority of government. Government's vision to ensure food security in Ghana has been largely achieved. This has even been acknowledged by the international community. Last year, in 2013, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization and the AU Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa recognized Ghana for achieving the Millennium Development Goal of reducing hunger and malnutrition in advance of the 2015 target. And Mr. Speaker, the award was received by the Minister for Agriculture on my behalf, and it was dedicated to all the hard-working farmers of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I wish to recognize our former presidents for their efforts in achieving this feat. His Excellency President Rawlings, His Excellency President John Ajekum Kufuor, His Excellency President Ivan Satamils of blessed memory are all recognized in this agricultural feat we achieved. Mr. Speaker, through the use of improved planting materials, subsidized fertilizers, extension services, and access to credit, we have achieved surpluses in our traditional staple crops: cassava, yam, plantain, and maize. This has enhanced food security in Ghana, as these foods are now plentiful in the market at reasonable prices. And to continue on this positive road, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to report that even with the huge volume and value of our rice imports, our local rice production has seen a significant increase of about 60%. This has necessitated the establishment by the private sector of 2 new rice processing factories in Yankpala in the northern region and Sogakope in the Volta region. Another rice processing factory is planned for a sanctuary in the greater Accra region, also by the private sector. And you know private sector, they won't set up a factory if it is not viable. And so it means there's increase in rice production. Mr. Speaker, despite these successes, many challenges still confront the industry. Access to credit, lack of mechanized equipment for large-scale commercial rice production, non-availability of sufficient irrigated lands, all these conditions constrain increased rice production. However, government is focused on partnering with the private sector to eliminate as many of these constraints as possible. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, within the past year, government completed the rehabilitation work on some viable irrigation schemes and added more than 1,200 hectares of land to our stock of irrigated lands, mainly for rice production. Another 8,000 hectares have been added by the private sector to supplement nearly 6,000 hectares of land in the 3 northern regions alone. That makes a total of 15,200 hectares of land, all devoted to rice cultivation. It is my firm belief that if we maintain this progress we are making in rice production, Ghana will in the near future become a net exporter of rice. Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, we achieved surpluses in our traditional staple crops, including cassava. Cassava is the most consumed crop per capita in Ghana. An abundance of cassava therefore represents a good source of income for our farmers, but it also guarantees the availability of local foods such as banku, tozafi, gari, konkonte, and fufu, which is the minority leader's favorite. Mr. Speaker, as I noted earlier, when left to our own devices, Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, when left to our own devices, we Ghanaians are exceptionally innovative and industrious. Lately, cassava has also been serving as a profitable input for the brewery industry. With the introduction of a new sliding scale for excise based on the use of local inputs, the breweries have been incentivized to introduce sorghum and cassava into beer production. These new brands are proving to be quite popular with consumers. This has been made possible as a result of the availability of over 6 million tons of extra cassava over and above our national demand. The introduction of improved varieties plus a well-developed value chain as well as the development of business-oriented viable farmer-based organizations has been at the basis of this achievement. Mr. Speaker, we've sustained our program of subsidies for fertilizer and improved seeds. The fertilizer subsidy program has increased in quantity from below 50,000 metric tons in 2008, when it was initiated, to 150,000 metric tons in 2013. Mr. Speaker, this year, 2014, the subsidy is expected to cover a volume of 180,000 metric tons. I'm also pleased to report that as a result of measures put in place, the incidence of smuggling of the product has largely been curtailed. Under the Livestock Production Program, the Animal Production Division of the Ministry of Agriculture is assisting farmers in the subsector to improve the quality and quantity of meat they supply to the market. Government's objective is to position agriculture as a truly viable and attractive area for private capital, just as we are seeing with mining, petroleum, and housing. I call on the private sector to partner with us to create new instruments that can allow us to share both the risk and benefits of such large-scale undertakings, which will trigger a more sustainable transformation to deliver prosperity to our people. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to report that we are entering into some of these partnerships already in the area of irrigation development. Collaboration between government institutions and private agribusiness groups is underway to deliver almost 30,000 hectares of irrigated land under the Sicily Kulpon project in the West Mamprusi area of Northern Region. Mr. Speaker, also environmental impact assessment studies are underway for a combined irrigation, flood control, and hydroelectric power station in the Upper East region. The actual location is Kwalugu. Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Commercial Agricultural Project, funded by the USAID and the World Bank, is working with traditional authorities in the Nasia River catchment area for another irrigation project. As mentioned earlier, work will commence on a new sugar factory in Komenda. I've said that already. And this will be supported with an irrigation scheme for high-yield sugarcane production to feed the factory. The factory is expected also to create jobs and employment within the catchment area and produce other value-added byproducts such as energy and alcohol. Since the establishment of the free zones in the early 90s, a lot of progress has been made in attracting serious investors into the export processing zone. Mr. Speaker, the zone is being positioned to attract more export-oriented investments that can generate foreign exchange, create employment, and improve livelihoods. The Ghana Free Zones Board has licensed 23 new companies that are expected to generate more than 10,000 new jobs over the next 3 years. Globalization and trade liberalization have brought in their wake a number of unfair trading practices, such as dumping by foreign exporters. We are aware of the difficulties encountered by some domestic companies as a result of these unfair trading practices. To check this practice, we will, in the course of this year, submit to you, honorable members, a bill on the establishment of a Ghana International Trade Commission, which will enable our nation to take advantage of the remedies on piracy, anti-dumping, and countervailing measures. The overall effect of the Commission will be to boost our domestic and international competitiveness. Mr. Speaker, we have passed the local content bill for the oil and gas industry. This bill will allow the Ghanaian private sector to participate fully in the multi-million-dollar contracts awarded in the industry. With the passage of this bill, Ghanaian registered companies must quickly build capacity to compete in the tenders advertised by the oil companies. Mr. Speaker, government will also use its financial muscle to boost the Ghanaian private sector. Their success is our success. Their prosperity is one that will ultimately benefit the entire nation. Ghanaian registered companies that are up to date in their corporate obligations will be given preference in bids under a revised Public Procurement Act soon to be laid before Parliament. Government agencies would be compelled to give first consideration in procurement of goods and services made in Ghana. Of course, value for money and quality will not be compromised in this process. Mr. Speaker, as part of efforts to create an orderly, transparent, and efficient marketing system for Ghana's key agricultural commodities, to promote agricultural investment and enhance productivity, government has committed itself to the establishment of the Ghana Commodity Exchange, an associated warehouse receipt system. This move will encourage market access and fair return for smallholder farmers and facilitate the formalization of informal agricultural trading activity. It is expected that the establishment of the Ghana Commodity Exchange will position it as a West African regional hub for commodity trading activities. Mr. Speaker, regarding the Economic Partnership Agreement, EPAs, with the EU, the West African Regional Bloc is in the process of conducting negotiations with the European Union. I am optimistic about the success of these negotiations, but considering that it may not be possible for these EPAs to be concluded before the 14th October target date this year, Ghana will take into consideration transitional measures to ensure that our export is not jeopardized. Mr. Speaker, government will support the Ghanaian industrial sector to enable it generate jobs, reduce poverty, and increase manufactured exports. This will include affordable financial credit for retooling and expansion. As part of measures to decongest the ports and facilitate trade, more non-intrusive cargo scanners will be deployed in 2014 at the various ports and major border posts. I've also asked the Minister for Finance to initiate the revision of the relevant legislative instruments to extend the time for goods meant for warehousing from 3 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. This will also facilitate the delivery of a 24-hour service by the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority. Mr. Speaker, we will reduce the time and transaction cost of clearance at the ports. The case where importers must pay demurrage as a result of inefficiencies not caused by these importers but by state agencies will be corrected. Mr. Speaker, a new Ghana Investment Promotion Act is enforced to regulate investments into the country. The GIPC, supported by the Ministry of Trade and Industry and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, has started embarking on aggressive trade and investment promotion activities. We have plans to establish trade offices in China, Turkey, South Africa, and Japan. The tourism and creative sector are a major contributor to our economic growth. In 2013, the sector maintained its position as the fourth highest foreign exchange earner after gold, cocoa, and remittances from Ghanaians abroad. International arrivals and receipts grew by 10%, rising from 903,000 in 2012 to 993,000 in 2013. It is our hope to break through the 1 million arrivals in the very near future. This resulted in an increase from US 1.7 billion to 1.9 billion, contributing 4.7% to our GDP growth. In terms of employment, a total of 319,000 jobs have been created in both the formal and informal tourism sector. With appropriate investments in this sector, tourism can become a leading revenue earner for our economy. We will invest also in the creative industries, which have become a major source of employment and income for thousands of our people. Mr. Speaker, just as the basic structure of our economy has remained virtually unchanged since our transition to a free self-governing nation, our basic infrastructure has not also greatly expanded since our early days. Back then, our population was significantly smaller and distributed more evenly across our country. Mr. Speaker, in 2000, Ghana's population was roughly 18.9 million. By 2010, it had increased by more than 30% to 24.6 million. In order to sustain and enhance our projected rates of growth over the long term, it is absolutely necessary that we develop and expand our infrastructure to support expanded economic activity and guarantee rapid socio-economic development. Current estimates indicate an annual funding gap of about 4 billion cedis if we are to effectively tackle our infrastructure challenges and expand them as a catalyst for growth. Mr. Speaker, following the announcement by the Honorable Minister for Finance when he presented the 2014 budget estimates to this House, I have moved quickly to set up an advisory team to lead the way for the operationalization of the Ghana Infrastructure Fund. Mr. Speaker, we made clear commitments to the nation in 2012 to embark on an aggressive expansion of the country's infrastructure. Pursuant to this commitment, a number of major investments have been made as part of our strategic infrastructure program in the road, transport, energy, water, housing, and communication sector. Mr. Speaker, roads. Every single day, we trust that our roads will carry our children, our spouses, parents, and friends safely to and from school and work appointments, villages, and our hometowns. We trust our roads for the reliable transport and delivery of food and beverages, clothing, and other merchandise. When our roads are not adequately maintained or repaired, we face the possibility of losing precious lives, much needed revenue, and losing time that could have been better spent doing something other than sitting in traffic. Mr. Speaker, when I delivered the State of the Nation address last year, I informed this House of my government's desire to transform the Kwame Nkrumah Circle into a modern three-tier interchange. Sofo line is on track, and it will be completed. Mr. Speaker, to transform the Kwame Nkrumah Circle into a modern interchange, to eliminate the human and vehicular congestion that has become associated with this very busy intersection. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report that I cut the sword for the beginning of construction work on this interchange, and work is currently ongoing. Mr. Speaker, we are making similar progress on many other road projects in various parts of the country. We are on schedule to complete the 147-kilometer Fufuso-Sola road in the northern region. That long stretch of road, which is being constructed for the first time in our history, has completely transformed the catchment area that it covers. Even before the road is completed, it is being reported that economic activity and tourist arrivals at the Mole Game Reserve have increased. Mr. Speaker, within Accra, work is also progressing on a number of traffic improvements in the city. I must acknowledge the messages of appreciation we have received from residents of Teshi Tebibiano. Does any of you live there? You know what is happening in that area. Teshi Tebibiano and surrounding communities following the fast-track rehabilitation of the road linking the area to the main Accra-Tema Beach Road, and is popularly called the Bush Road. Mr. Speaker, several roadworks are ongoing in Accra under the Urban Roads Project. And Mr. Speaker, 30 kilometers of road have been completed in the Garden City of Kumasi. 30 kilometers. Ask your minority leader, he'll tell you. Mr. Speaker, for those of you who don't know, ask your minority leader, he'll tell you. Many of these roads are in the Swami and Asawasi constituencies. And I know Muntaka, Honorable Muntaka is also happy about that. Mr. Speaker, roads like, and I know the minority leader will recognize these roads, roads like Abawa Ruth, Unimo and Unimo. Mr. Speaker, roads like Abawa Ruth, Breman UGC, Sepe Dote, Abusakurua, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, and in Asawasi, the Sawaba area roads, Edukrom, Asokori Mampong roads are all being rehabilitated. We'll come to Mensia. Otumfo is there, we'll do the roads. Mr. Speaker, in 2013, significant progress was made on other important road projects in various parts of the country. These include Takwa Yamfuri Bogoso. Work is ongoing. I went and inspected it myself. Sectional repairs on Takwa Pristia Road, the Central Corridor Road project consisting of the Nsawam Bypass, Kwafu Kroma Peja, Techiman Kintampo, Bwipe to Tamale Overlay, the Eastern Corridor Road, Tevedo de Pepesu to Nkwanta to Otidamanko, and work is beginning by the Brazilian contractors on Otidamanko to Nakwanduri stretch of the Eastern Corridor. Mr. Speaker, the coastal corridor roads have also been touched, from Aflao to Agbozomi, to Akachi, Aguna Junction to Elubu Junction to Elubu, Accra East Corridor. This includes the Gifford and Bema Camp roads, and the Accra West Corridor, that is the Awoshi Pokwase Road. And I urge all of you to go and see the work we've done on the Awoshi Pokwase Road. Mr. Speaker, work will continue. We'll touch Kwawu. When I went for the Easter, the Kwawu chiefs, appealed to me to do the Kwawu roads. We'll look at it. Mr. Speaker, work is continuing and will be, the pace would increase on the Wali Gambaga Road, on the Navrongo Tumu Road, on the Tamale Salaga Road, on the Kintampo Abiase and Atebubu Kwame Danso roads. And work will start this year on the Laura Han Tumu Road. And I know the majority leader will be very happy about that. Mr. Speaker, installation of bridges is also ongoing to open up the road from Waliwali to Wa. The 60-kilometer Anwi and Kwanta Asimprasu Road has been reconstructed with a new bridge spanning the River Pra. And I will have the honor and privilege to commission this road when I visit the Central Region later this week. Mr. Speaker, in 2013, across the country, we undertook critical maintenance work on a total of 15,405 kilometers of trunk, urban, and feeder roads. This year, in addition to ensuring speedy completion of the ongoing projects, we will commence a new number of road projects aimed at further opening up the country and facilitating the free movement of people, as well as enhancing economic activities. These projects will include the 25-kilometer Kaswa bypass and town roads in Kaswa, roads in Sekendi Takrady, Nyakrom, Gwelu, Bole, Manfikumase, Petoy, Mori, Old Tafo, and Fomena and Nyenase. Mr. Speaker, we have always been fond of referring to Ghana as the gateway to West Africa. But more and more, it's looking like Ghana has becoming a gateway to the rest of Africa. A reliable, cost-effective, and modern transportation system is required to fast-track our transition from a lower middle-income country to a fully fledged middle-income country. To this end, we have over the last few years been putting in place the building blocks for reaching this goal. A well-coordinated port infrastructure expansion program has commenced, and I had the privilege of cutting the sword for the beginning of expansion of the Takrady Harbour. The purpose of these projects, Mr. Speaker, is to position the ports in readiness for enhanced port business targeting our landlocked neighbors, larger vessels, and other oil and gas sectors. Infrastructure development projects are major job creation avenues, and these ongoing works are creating thousands of jobs for our people. As we prepare for the start of the upgrading work on the Tamale Airport, we can be assured of new job opportunities in the northern city of Tamale. This will be resulting from the new and improved eco and cultural tourism opportunities, as well as supporting the agricultural sector by leveraging the export of fresh produce and agro-based industries. Mr. Speaker, work is progressing on the rehabilitation and expansion project at the Kotoka International Airport. The parking apron for wide-bodied aircraft has been completed. Expansion of the arrival hall will be carried out to create more space for the increased number of passengers arriving at Kotoka Airport each day. Adverts would soon be placed for the construction of a new terminal at the Kotoka International Airport. This terminal is to be known as Terminal 3, and it will take the pressure off Terminal 2 so that comprehensive rehabilitation of that terminal can take off in earnest. Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure the MPs from Ashanti will be happy to hear this. Mr. Speaker, work is ongoing on the resurfacing of the Kumasi Airport runway. Mr. Speaker, runway lights, and this is very interesting. Mr. Speaker, often when you sit in the plane, you can't see the work that is going on the runway, so I'm not surprised. Mr. Speaker, and this is the best part. Runway lights and modern navigation systems are being installed, and work will be completed very soon. Mr. Speaker, listen carefully. Mr. Speaker, this will allow aircrafts to land at all times throughout the day and night. Passengers arriving on long-haul aircrafts at night and wishing to continue directly to Kumasi will be able to connect by domestic carriers. Mr. Speaker, designs for aerodromes in Ho, Bogatanga, and Cape Coast are being done and should be ready soon. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, during my tenure of office, Ghana will witness a revival of its railway transport service. Order. Carting export produce to the ports and safely carrying commuters over various distances. As I speak, work on the Sekondi Kojokrom railway line is on track. Mr. Speaker, I've asked the team, comprising the Minister for Finance and the Minister for Transport, to actualize my plans for the railway sector, which includes the construction of a new rail link between Tema and the Boankra Inland Port, and then also the Western Rail Line between Takrady and Kumasi, as a way of attracting more interest and revenue-generating activity from our landlocked neighbors. Mr. Speaker, not only will this increase the lifespan of our roads, but it will also improve the speed with which goods bound for the northern sector of the country are delivered and to our landlocked neighbors. Mr. Speaker, the damage caused in 2012 to the West African gas pipeline revealed the flaws and limitations and deficiencies of an outdated energy infrastructure that was being forced to operate beyond its capacity. The pledge to ramp up our generation capacity to 5,000 megawatts from the current level by 2016 is very much on course. While we were confronted with managing the dire power supply challenges of 2013, we were not short-sighted in our resolve, but also started working towards making such crises a thing of the past. In building what will be a resilient energy sector, we recognize that our quest to expand the manufacturing sector, enhance industrialization, and transform the structure of our economy will depend on the availability of energy. Government is accordingly working to guarantee the required generating capacity using a mix of generation sources, including renewable energy, supply from independent power producers, and of course our long-standing hydropower. A total of 534 megawatts of power was added into our national transmission in 2013, bringing our total generating capacity to 2,845 megawatts. We are aggressively pursuing the completion of a number of additional power generating projects, and these include the first phase of a 220 megawatts Pung thermal power plant, completion of the 110 megawatt T2 and Volta River's 12 megawatt solar project. Mr. Speaker, independent power producers, and many of them, will also commence the construction of new power plants in the country this year. Increased power generation capacity must be supported with a reliable transmission system. Government policy in this direction is aimed at developing an efficient, modern, and non-congested transmission by the year 2015. To attain this, a number of projects were executed in 2013. The Kintampo substation was done to ensure evacuation of power from the Bui hydroelectric dam, and also to improve transmission of power to Kintampo and the northern part of the country. A state-of-the-art control system has been set up to improve supervisory control and data acquisition system that now enables Gridco to be able to perform economic dispatch of generating units. Work on the Tumu-Hanwa transmission project is progressing on schedule. Mr. Speaker, last year we successfully secured funding for the 330 Kumasi-Bolgatanga transmission line. We also commenced work to reinforce the power system in Ghana and ensure power transfer to Burkina Faso and other Sahelian countries as part of the West African Power Pool. Mr. Speaker, arrangements are also underway to secure additional funds for the implementation of the Pristia-Kumasi component of these transmission lines. We are concerned about customer responsiveness of our utility companies and have accordingly charged the new board of directors to ensure that management of the companies draw up and implement efficient and effective customer service management modules. Mr. Speaker, the implementation of projects under the National Electrification Scheme in line with our Energy for All program has been stepped up. In 2013, electrification projects commenced in some 900 communities in Ghana. These projects are at various stages of completion. Ghana's electricity connectivity at 75% is currently the highest in sub-Saharan Africa after South Africa. 75% is the highest in sub-Saharan Africa after South Africa. Mr. Speaker, steady progress continues to be made in the petroleum sector. Average daily production from the Jubilee oil field is currently 102,000 barrels a day, with a year-to-date average daily production of 102,112 barrels. The 10 field, which is the next field of development, has been approved. The plan of development has been approved, paving the way for the exploitation of reserves of about 245 million barrels of oil and 367 billion cubic feet of gas. The Sankofa Jinyame appraisal activities have been completed. Both oil and gas discoveries have been declared commercial, with proven reserves of about 116 million barrels of oil and in excess of 1.1 billion cubic feet of gas. 4 petroleum agreements in the South Deepwater Tunnel and East Cape 3 points are at various stages of approval, and I know some of them are coming before you to this House. Mr. Speaker, the 3 components of the gas processing project, which consists of the offshore pipeline, onshore pipeline, and the processing plant, have reached various levels of completion. The offshore pipeline is 95% complete and awaiting pre-commissioning. We expect the plant to be operational in the second half of the year. If we receive this gas, it will make our electricity supply more reliable. Mr. Speaker, as part of efforts to discourage the reliance on wood as a source of fuel, government has launched an LPG promotion program, and this was done in Garu Timpani last year, aimed at reversing the deleterious effect the continuous burning of some 13 million tons of firewood a year is having on our environment. The program is expected to achieve 50% LPG penetration in urban centers and 15% LPG penetration in rural areas. Under this program, 50,000 LPG cylinders will be distributed, and it is my hope that members of Parliament will participate actively in this huge job creation exercise. Mr. Speaker, we all know that water is life. Without water, neither we nor this planet can survive. However, this simple truth holds little meaning for a significant section of our people who still do not as yet have access to potable water. In Ghana, urban water coverage is currently estimated at 63%, while rural water coverage stands at 64%. Government's long-term objective in water provision is to guarantee universal access by 2025. In the short term, however, we are working to increase urban water coverage from the current level to 85% by 2015, while taking rural water coverage to 76% within the same period. The Greater Accra metropolitan area alone accounts for 60% of the total urban water consumption in the country. By 2015, its projected daily demand will be 150 million gallons. Total water production from the Kong and Weja treatment plants, which supply the Greater Accra region, stand at only 93 million gallons per day. This leaves a whopping shortfall of 57 million gallons each day. And I'll tell you what I'm doing about it. To bridge this gap, 4 key projects are currently ongoing. And these projects, when completed between this year and 2015, will deliver a total of 65.3 additional million gallons of water per day to the existing production. Between this year and 2015, the total water supply to the Greater Accra metropolitan area will increase to 158.3 million gallons of water per day. This will be enough, I said this will be enough, to tackle the water demands in the area by the end of 2015. And this is the good news. This will end the water starvation in the northern parts of the capital city. So those of you, end of this year, those of you who live in Adenta, Hacho, East Legon, Agbogba, Madina, Abokobi, will all receive water. Mr. Speaker, the projects I'm referring to are the Kong Water Supply Expansion Project, the Kong Intake Rehabilitation Project, the Accra Tema Metropolitan Area Water Supply Project, and the Teshi Nungwa Desalination Water Project. Mr. Speaker, all over the country, there are other water projects at various stages of completion, which would add about 30 million gallons of water per day to the existing production. Mr. Speaker, we will eradicate the handling of the Kufor gallons. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we will work to eliminate the cocoa gallons. Mr. Speaker, a number of projects intended to make water available to rural dwellers were vigorously pursued in 2013. These include the Damanku-Kwasa Water Supply Project, which is serving about 60,000 inhabitants in 13 communities in Nkwantan North District of the Volta region, and several other projects. I commissioned the Bunkurugu Small Town Water Project recently. Under the Kokobot borehole project, over 1,000 boreholes were sunk to serve more than 30,000 people. And under the Northern Region Small Water and Sanitation Project, 125,000 inhabitants in 14 districts are being targeted. Mr. Speaker, these interventions, coupled with other initiatives across the country, have firmly put Ghana on the way to achieving the MDG goals on water. Mr. Speaker, I come to housing. Mr. Speaker, available data puts the housing deficit in Ghana at a staggering 1.7 million housing units. There are a number of ongoing interventions to help reduce this deficit. Work has commenced on a 5,000-unit project at Ningo in the Greater Accra region. This is part of what is built to be a 9,120-unit affordable housing complex. The quest to tackle the housing deficit is being handled not as a 100% government-financed project, but through various forms of private sector participation. Another set of 15,000 affordable units will be constructed over the next 5 years. I have following discussions, Mr. Speaker, with some members of the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, directed the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources and his colleague at the Water Resources, Works and Housing Ministry to discuss with the association a proposal for their contribution and involvement in the construction of affordable houses. Let me add that various state agencies have been tasked to finance and complete the projects that were being undertaken under the Kufuor administration. The Tema Development Corporation is working on buildings at the Kpong site, while the Social Security and National Insurance Trust has taken over the construction of the units at Boteman, Asokore Mampo in Kumasi, Koforidua, Tamale, and Wa. Mr. Speaker, information and communications technology can improve the quality of life of our people. Just think of all the ways we now use our mobile phones. In a relatively short period of time, this technology has become one of the most indispensable tools of trade, health, banking, financial services, money transfer, social networking, and education, as well as skills trading. In the face of global economic challenges, this sector in Ghana continues to register strong growth, contributing about 24.7% to the services sector share of GDP last year. Due in part to an enabling and improved operating environment, infrastructural expansion and sustained competition, telephone subscriptions for both mobile and fixed access lines increased by 10.5% over the 2012 figure to over 25 million subscriber lines. Last year, the sector recorded a total of about 28 million access lines, representing a penetration rate of 107.5%, with mobile telephony accounting for 106%, representing over 27 million subscribers. Mr. Speaker, to further expand access to broadband infrastructure for increased internet access, the construction of the Eastern Corridor fiber optic network commenced last year, and so far 107 kilometers of fiber out of the 780-kilometer stretch has been laid. Mr. Speaker, transparent and accountable governance. Let me take Joshua Water. Mr. Speaker, the most formidable pillar of our transition to middle income status is our enviable and deepening record of constitutional governance and rule of law. In the past year, Ghana has demonstrated beyond every shred of doubt the resilience of our democracy. Together, we are knitting the fabric of an inclusive, united, and tolerant society. Together, we are moving forward on the path of democratic consolidation. In the past year, I have sought to conduct a participatory and transparent administration by consulting regularly a recent case of 414 kilograms of cocaine. Yes, with an approximate street value of 115 million Ghana cedis. As part of our strategy to arrest the drug menace, the NACOB has been facilitated to open 8 additional regional offices, for which they have recruited 250 personnel who are currently undergoing training. Government has also initiated a draft narcotics control bill to replace PNDC Law 236, which established the Narcotics Control Board. Mr. Speaker, Ghanaians have proven time and time again that we are peaceful and harmonious people with no desire or tolerance for war or violence. We don't want all die be die. Even, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker,
Honourable members have been muted.
even as our neighbors were engaged in civil unrest and bloodshed for lengthy periods of their history, we did not allow it to spill over into our land. Within our borders, there existed perfect peace. Mr. Speaker, government will do everything possible to ensure that this continues to be the case. We will continue to work with the National Peace Council to ensure a resolution of conflicts and bring lasting peace to areas that have been going through conflict. We will continue to support the National Peace Council to deliver on its mandate. Mr. Speaker, I'm coming to the armed forces. Our armed forces continue to earn praise for their professionalism and performance both within the country and abroad on peacekeeping missions to which they are deployed. Despite the esteem in which our armed forces are held, Mr. Speaker, the equipment and logistics position of the armed forces was very pathetic. Lack of airplanes and helicopters, lack of naval vessels, lack of armored personnel carriers, lack of infantry fighting vehicles, and lack of engineering equipment forced our men and women in uniform to become the most ingenious improvisers you could ever find. Mr. Speaker, this situation has dramatically changed. Our waters are safer and are kept safe from pirates because the Navy has received 7 new vessels. The Air Force role in ensuring national security and safety has been enhanced by the acquisition of CASA troop transport aircraft. Mr. Speaker, our territorial integrity is ensured by the operation of Diamond surveillance and patrol aircraft. Mr. Speaker, medical evacuation and transport of troops has been enhanced by the acquisition of Mi-17 heavy lift helicopters. Mr. Speaker, the responsibilities of our forces continue to increase. Apart from engagement in the peacekeeping theaters in Lebanon, DRC, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Mali, we have recently been requested to deploy for air operations in Mali, and also been requested to deploy 850 troops as part of the UN mission in South Sudan. Mr. Speaker, we are proud of our valiant men and women who serve Ghana and the world on behalf of this nation, and government is committed to doing whatever we can to make sure that they are able to conduct their service more safely and efficiently, in attire that is appropriate, with equipment that is available, and an atmosphere that is befitting. Mr. Speaker, I come to Parliament. Mr. Speaker, Ghana enjoys substantial praise for both nationally and internationally, and has earned an enviable reputation as a burgeoning democracy, in large part because of our strong parliament. The Parliament of the Republic of Ghana has led the way. This is a very good commendation of you, and I would advise that you keep quiet and listen. Mr. Speaker, the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana has led the way in groundbreaking procedures and practices, becoming the hub of many parliamentary networks. Strengthening Parliament is therefore crucial to strengthening our democracy. Mr. Speaker, I will continue to work to enhance the dignity and respect of this august House. Mr. Speaker, we need to work closely to strengthen public input into your legislative process. After years of delay, I'm pleased that members of Parliament will soon have decent offices. Mr. Speaker, I thought you'd say Bohobium. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased that members of Parliament will soon have decent offices from which to conduct their business. Mr. Speaker, the days of using the trunks of our cars to conduct business will finally be a thing of the past. Mr. Speaker, when I was a member of this House, we used to conduct our business from the trunks of our cars. I said this Parliament is going to receive decent offices. Mr. Speaker, the Constitutional Review Implementation Committee has been working hard to fulfill the mandate given to it, and it is my hope that very soon this House will lend its unalloyed support to achieve the objectives of the Constitutional Review exercise. Mr. Speaker, work is going to commence on the reconfiguration of this chamber. To accommodate your increased number of 275 for effective legislative work to take place. Mr. Speaker, when this is done, it will make you more comfortable. Ghana's decentralization process has been acclaimed across Africa as one of the most far-reaching on the continent. We have continued to deepen administrative decentralization and made significant headway in the area of fiscal decentralization, and I'll be finished soon. By putting more power in the hands of our people at the local government level, we would be empowering our people to take their destinies into their own hands. It will make us better able to handle the enormous issues of sanitation and pollution that are threatening to engulf us. This will enhance efficient use of natural resources and give our people a better stake in the progress of our nation. Mr. Speaker, Ghana's foreign policy has assumed prominence in the area of peacekeeping. We are getting more engaged in advancing regional integration in the West African and continental levels. In 2013, we were instrumental in the successful efforts of ECOWAS and the international community to achieve a peaceful resolution of the conflict in Mali. We continue to be actively engaged in several peacekeeping initiatives in the region and around the world. Our people have provided us full support for these initiatives, and our citizens are proud to belong to a nation that helps in the resolution of conflict and the promotion of democracy across our continent. Mr. Speaker, as the focus of this government is on the transformation of our economic structures, we are actively engaged with our neighbors in strengthening regional integration. A key part of this agenda relates to the very themes I have enumerated for our domestic economic growth, namely strategic infrastructure, energy, improved governance, and employment. Ghana will continue to champion regional integration and African unity. We see the transformation of Ghana's economic structure as integrally linked to the emergence and fortunes of a viable West African market, with an overall population of more than 250 million people. Mr. Speaker, most nations have accelerated their economic development and transformation by harnessing the contribution of their diaspora. People of African descent made key contributions towards Ghana's independence, and Ghana continues to benefit from the contributions of Ghanaians and non-Ghanaians in the diaspora. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration has now established a fully fledged Bureau for Diaspora Affairs as a national platform for diasporan engagement, migration and development. This new outfit possesses the enhanced capacity as well as the mandate to coordinate the work of stakeholder institutions and mainstream their contribution into our national development. Many hundreds of highly experienced and qualified Ghanaians who have recently retired from the UN system, for example, are also standing by to assist us in our transition to middle income status. These are refreshing new directions that our foreign policy will begin to address as we embark on this journey of transformation. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, Vice Omre. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, in order for it to be thorough and successful, this transformational journey we are about to undertake will require the support and participation of all Ghanaians. In 2013, during my end-of-year meeting with the Council of State, members were unanimous in bemoaning what seems to be a falling sense of selflessness and patriotism within our society. We discussed at length the topic of responsible citizenship and wondered whether that value had somehow been lost to the political divide that has swallowed so much of what once joined us together. My first inclination is to believe that it has not. My inclination is to believe that Ghanaians are, at our core, the same people we were on March 6, 1957, when we became a free nation. I'm inclined to believe that those traits and values that led us to our liberation back then were passed down as gifts from one generation of Ghanaian to the next. Mr. Speaker, I began this address by stating that today, as I talked about where we are as a nation, I also wanted to talk about who we are as a nation. Ask any Ghanaian what it means to be from this country, what it means to be made in Ghana, so to speak, and she or he will respond with pride. I've witnessed it time and again, the pride with which we talk about our homeland, whether we're mentioning our leading role in African liberation or our leading role as UN peacekeepers since the inception of the program. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about Ghana, there is so much to share from our rich culture and our numerous languages, from our foods and our folklore, from our music and our dance, and from our heritage and our traditions. Mr. Speaker, there is a reason why day after day, flights destined for Ghana are filled to capacity with tourists and volunteers and NGO workers. There's a reason why so many black people in the diaspora with no immediate Ghanaian lineage rename themselves Kwame, Kofi, and Kwesi, or Acquah, Abna, and Ifia. Mr. Speaker, the world loves Ghana because we also love Ghana. But the instant we allow ourselves to fall prey to the pettiness of politics and the small-mindedness of doomsayers and people who actively wish for the failure of any action or policy intended to lift Ghana up, we turn our backs on that love, and in so doing, we betray our own homeland. Mr. Speaker, Ghana is bigger than any of us. Ghana is bigger than any of our political parties. Ghana belongs to its people. Ghana belongs to the members of those 74,000 households who will now be able to eat because of the cash grants given to them by LEAP. Ghana belongs to the children who are now able to attend school. Ghana belongs to the new teachers who are now being trained. Ghana belongs to the villagers who now have potable drinking water. Mr. Speaker, Ghana belongs to our black stars. Ghana belongs to our black queens and other representatives in the arena of sports. Ghana belongs to our business leaders and entrepreneurs. And these enterprising young people who are creating jobs and working to strengthen our economy, to innovate people like those of us seated in this house today. Mr. Speaker, Ghana belongs to the Kate Papathews of this world. Ghana belongs to the Frankedus of this world. Ghana belongs to the Michael Hinakus of this world. Ghana belongs to the Alhaji Mohammed of Agbeve Herbal Center. Mr. Speaker, Ghana belongs to Tony Senaya of Horseman Shoes. And Ghana belongs to Magnus Nunu of Sachet and Bottled Water Producers. And many, many, many more like them. Mr. Speaker, but most of all, Ghana belongs to you. The people who get up every day and do their best to earn a living to maintain their households, to feed and educate their children, to care for our elders, and to be a functional part of our communities. Mr. Speaker, your love of this country matters. Your service to this country can make a difference. Mr. Speaker, I must believe that we are still a patriotic society with citizens who feel a sense of responsibility to their nation. Mr. Speaker, we must all rise to the challenge of transforming Ghana. Because if not us, who will do it for us? Mr. Speaker, we cannot falter. Mr. Speaker, we cannot falter. And we must not be afraid, because God is on our side. And the Holy Book says, if God be for us, who can be against us? I thank you for your kind attention.
Congratulations.
Address delivered by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the President of Ghana. It has been an elaborate and comprehensive speech, and it has spanned basically the four key pillars that form the cornerstone of the Mahama administration.
The President has just ended his State of the Nation's Address 2014. He's ended with Ghana is for you. And, well, I believe you already know that. What your thoughts are, I'd love to know on social media platforms. The President has highlighted a number of things. He's spoken about some of the things he did in 2013 as far as the State of the Nation is concerned. And he's also looked forward into 2014. What he hopes to achieve. Pretty shortly we'll turn to the studio and then discuss further what we've been hearing from the President. But let's go back to Parliament.
Honourable members, honourable members, the application is from the Women Caucus. Majority Leader, any indication with regards to the adjournment of the House? Honorable Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I can indicate very clearly that His Excellency the President has actually discharged his duty under Article 67 of the 1992 Constitution creditably. Mr. Speaker, before we formally thank His Excellency the President, let me join you on behalf of the House to extend our gratitude to His Excellency for attending to this House and to perform this all-important constitutional function. Mr. Speaker, looking at the mood of the House and seeing my own colleague, the Minority Leader, I noticed that he had written so copiously that he has no space left on any of his papers. And this actually prefigures a very, very rigorous and all-encompassing debate in relation to the statement on the state of the nation presented today by His Excellency. I certainly think that if the drums have not started, the dance should not begin. On this note, Mr. Speaker, I would like to move that this House do adjourn to Wednesday, the 26th of February 2014 in the forenoon, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, in rising to second the motion, as proposed by the Majority Leader, let me confess that indeed the Majority Leader is right in saying that the paper that I brought is really full up. I noticed, though, that it's a rehash and indeed a recycling of many of the things. But the debate hasn't begun. The debate hasn't begun, Mr. Speaker, so I'll reserve my comment, except to note that one important arm of government was not mentioned. Maybe it's stuck somewhere in the President's statement. When we have the full complement, maybe we'll see. But Mr. Speaker, yes, the President, His Excellency the President, on occasion said, "Boy Simre." Indeed, I noticed that the people who were closest to him were really tired. But we will bounce back and debate the matter. We'll reserve our energies for the fateful day. There are so many things that we can discuss. But I'm happy that in winding up, you said everybody should come together. And you ended on a happy note. For which reason? I may also want to end on a happy note by seconding the motion moved by the Majority Leader. Mr. Speaker, I second the motion for adjournment.
All members, motion moved and seconded. I will now put the question. As many as are in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say no. Honourable members, I will put the question again. As many as are in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Accordingly, the House is adjourned till tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the forenoon. Honourable members, thank you very much.